is the videotape deposition of Mr. Henry Cohen.
In the Circuit Court of the 15th Judicial Circuit in and for Palm Beach County, Florida, Probate Division, case number 502010, CP 004252, XXXXSB, in re Estate of Alan Hames, deceased, Xylo Marshall petitioner versus Lois M. Hames as personal representative of the estate of Alan Hames, and Craig Donoff as personal representative of the estate of Alan Hames, respondents.
This deposition is being held at U.S. Legal Support, Inc., New York, 425 Park Avenue, New York, New York, on March 5th, 2014, at approximately 10:34 a.m. My name is Sally Brown from U.S. Legal Support, and I am the video specialist. The court reporter today is Allison Fowler, also from U.S. Legal Support. Will counsel please introduce themselves?
Attorney Matt Tornin-Casa of Shendell and Pollock PL, on behalf of respondents Lois Hames and Craig Donoff, as the co-personal representatives of the estate of Alan Hames. Mr. Marshall, please introduce yourself.
My name is Xylo Marshall, representing myself as pro se in the estate of Alan Hames, petitioner.
Will the court reporter please swear in the witness?
Raise your right hand, please. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Mr. Cohen, my name is Matt Tornin-Casa. I'm an attorney. I represent Craig Donoff and Lois Hames as co-personal representatives of the estate of Alan Hames in connection with this lawsuit brought by Mr. Hames' grandson, Xylo Marshall. Can you state your name for the record, please?
Henry Cohen.
Okay, and your address, sir?
20 West 64th Street, New York, New York, 10023.
Okay, and approximately how long have you lived there?
10 years.
Okay. And what do you do for a living, Mr. Cohen?
I'm a real estate investor.
Okay. Did you know the decedent, Alan Hames?
Yes, I did.
Okay. Can you tell me how and when you first met Alan Hames?
Alan taught the real estate broker's course in 1976, and I took the course, and we became friendly, and I then worked for him for a year, most of the year of 1977, before going to business school.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the end of that answer.
I worked for him most of the year of 1977 before going to business school in January 1978.
Okay. How would you describe your relationship with Alan Hames over the years?
Very close. We subsequently became partners. I knew Alan for 35 years. And we had a wonderful and long, enduring relationship.
I apologize. Sometimes I'll be taking notes while you speak, so if I take a moment, I apologize.
That's quite all right.
Just a couple of quick guidelines for this deposition as we get through the background. Because the court reporter is taking down everything we say, a couple things to make her job easier. The first is if you could give me an opportunity to make sure that I get my entire question out before you begin answering. The second thing is because there's a videographer, and I see you nodding that you understand, and I appreciate that. While the video will pick up that you're nodding, the court reporter cannot. So if I ask you a question that has a yes or no answer, if I ask you to respond with a yes or a no, because nods don't show up on a typed transcript, and then ambiguous answers like uh-huh or also can tend to create issues when they get typed. Did you understand those questions?
I understand.
Terrific. And then the last thing is if I do ask you a question that you don't understand, if you could please let me know that you don't understand, otherwise I'll assume you did understand the question.
Okay.
And then the final thing is, we're not here to test you. We're not here to quiz you or test your memory. Just here to find out what you know. So if you could please let me know if you are speculating or guessing when you're giving any of your answers today.
Okay.
Thanks. Okay. How did you come to be business partners with Alan Hames?
Well, as I said, I worked for him for about a year.
Okay.
And then we started looking to buy properties, and we subsequently bought properties and were partners over the years.
Okay. What was your business? I gather you guys were purchase and redevelop real estate. Is that a fair characterization, or?
We purchased what's called, most of the properties we purchased tended to be what's called triple net leases.
Okay.
Buildings leased to one tenant.
And how long would you and Mr. Hames, were you and Mr. Hames partners?
Well, I'd say we probably bought our first property in the early 1980s.
Okay.
And we still have one property that we're still partners on. So, 80, 90, over 30 years.
Okay. In addition to your business relationship, was there a personal relationship between you and Alan Hames?
Yes.
Okay. How would you describe that personal relationship?
He was my initial mentor in the business. As I said, I worked for him for a year, so it was just Alan, his wife, and I were the firm. So we had a very, very close working relationship. And then when I left and went to work at other companies, Alan and I would talk on a very regular basis, almost daily, seeking investment opportunities together. And on occasion we would socialize. I'd say socializing with our wives wasn't that often, but it did happen on occasion. So it was...
Okay. Was Alan Hames invited to your wedding?
Yes, he was. He and Carol.
Terrific. Did he know your children?
Yes, he did.
Okay.
Yes, he did.
And was he present at your children's bar bat mitzvahs?
Yes, he was.
Okay. Do you know when Alan Hames moved to Florida?
I'm just, from my memory, when he moved to Florida, I'd be guessing, but probably in the late 1990s, perhaps.
Okay. When Alan Hames moved to Florida, was there any kind of change in your relationship, or did you still stay in regular contact with him?
We stayed in regular contact. I'd say probably the calls may perhaps been a little less frequent, but we still stayed, and we were still partners, and we still looked at seeking investment opportunities together. So we did stay in regular contact.
Okay. This matter in this lawsuit, which we called you as a witness in, relates to an effort by the petitioner, Mr. Marshall, to challenge the capacity of Mr. Hames to make a will on or around January 2009, when his current operative will was signed. There's also an ancillary allegation by the petitioner that Lois Hames was unduly influencing Alan Hames to change his will in January 30th, 2009.
Excuse me.
You've testified that you were in contact with Mr. Hames on a fairly regular basis. For the period 2008 to 2009, were you still in contact with Mr. Hames on a fairly regular basis?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I was.
Okay. And during that period of time, and most particularly with regard to, say, December 2008 and January 2009, maybe February 2009. Were you in contact with Alan Hames during that period of time?
Yes, I believe I was.
Okay. And during that period of time, did you believe that Alan Hames appeared to lack mental capacity?
No, he never lacked mental capacity.
Okay.
During that period.
Okay. When you would speak with Alan Hames in particular during this period of time, what would you speak about?
We often spoke about our existing property that we were partners in, as well as new potential opportunities that I was looking at, and we would, discuss different offers that I might make for these properties and different business strategies that we would pursue.
Okay. Based on your description, these sound like potentially fairly sophisticated, higher level discussions. Like you weren't calling just talking about baseball scores. Did Mr. Hames have any trouble keeping up in these discussions?
He had no trouble keeping up.
Okay.
He was integrally involved and provided meaningful input.
Okay. I apologize, some of these questions seem kind of basic. So during this period of time, Alan Hames knew who he was?
Yes, he absolutely knew.
And he knew where he was?
Yes, he absolutely knew where he was.
And he knew when he was in time?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Would he recognize, did he know his family members, do you know?
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Okay. Did you have any concern over his ability to appreciate things like his net worth or his financial position?
He knew his financial position very well.
Okay. And that would come up because you guys were still discussing, or I guess, would that come up in your discussions of possible investments as to whether or not he would participate, or?
Sure, absolutely. But, we also had discussions about his other properties that he was involved with and owned, and he was very clear of mind and very clearly able to communicate the concepts that he was trying to get across.
How would you characterize Mr. Hames' personality?
Alan was very outgoing, sociable, very friendly. He was a very creative, imaginative man, particularly for someone who never graduated high school or college.
Was there ever a time that Alan Hames discussed his estate plan or estate planning with you?
Yes, we did have discussions about it.
Okay. Can you tell me about those discussions, please? When was the first time you recall having a discussion about Alan's estate plan?
Oh, Alan and I had discussions for decades.
Okay.
He, I'd say, postponed doing estate planning. I think he perhaps feared the concept and sort of avoided it for many years. But got very serious about it. I don't know, probably around the time his wife, Carol, passed away. I always tried to encourage him to pursue estate planning, just so the federal government didn't end up with a lot of his estate. And so I think from the time Carol passed away on, he started to get more serious about estate planning. And then eventually developed a plan that he implemented.
Okay. Did you ever discuss any of the specifics of his estate plan with him?
Yes, we've had some discussions.
Okay. Can you tell me a little bit about those discussions?
It sort of evolved over time. I'd say that Alan clearly wanted to provide for is this for his will or for estate planning are you referring to?
Well, both in a sense, I guess. Do you draw a distinction between the two?
Well, estate planning perhaps involves more outside financial advisors,
Okay.
whereas a will doesn't provide necessarily for that.
Okay.
So,
Yeah. I'm using it kind of in the colloquial in the sense of the whole shebang. I do understand that there would be tax planning concepts that need to be applied in terms of making sure you're safe. But for purposes of this, I just want to go through kind of just any aspect of his testamentary intent in terms of who he believed he wanted to benefit from his estate. But I also am interested if there were additional discussions between you about those other issues, because I think those bear in his capacity.
I see. It was always very clear that, well, I guess in the early years when Carol was still alive, Alan never anticipated that she would pass away before him. She was 18 years younger than Alan. So I think that sort of caught him by surprise. But subsequent to that, it was always very clear that he wanted to provide for his daughter Lois. I think he was very angry and frustrated with his relationship with his grandson Xylo. And I think that his clear intent was to provide for Lois.
Okay. Why do you say that Alan Hames was frustrated with Xylo?
I don't have all the details, but I know there were times when they would get, I guess Xylo had come out to West Hampton. Alan had a condominium in West Hampton, and I know Xylo had gone out once or possibly more than that. And Alan always was very angry and frustrated with the visits, with the experience, with he didn't go into detail with me on it, but he always expressed a larger sense of anger and frustration with actions that Xylo had taken.
Okay. Do you personally know Lois Hames or Xylo Marshall?
I personally know Lois. I do not know Xylo.
Okay. When did you first meet Lois?
I first met Lois on a trip. Lois lived in California, near Venice Beach, and my sister lived in California, and I was out visiting my sister. Oh, this must be back in, I'd say, the 1980s, and probably the early 1980s, if I had to guess.
Okay.
It might have even been before that. Might have been the year I was working with Alan. And Alan had asked me to visit Lois, just to say hello and see how she was doing, since I was going to California and was not going to be that far away. My sister lived in LA. So I met with Lois, and Alan just wanted some feedback as to how she was doing, and Lois and I had a nice, I think we spent an afternoon together, a few hours together.
Okay.
So that was the first time, I think that was the first time I met her,
Okay.
as I recall.
Subsequent to that first meeting, would you socialize with Lois regularly?
No, Lois lived in California most of the years that I was, friendly with Alan.
Okay.
She only moved to Florida, probably around the time Carol passed away. Or actually, she still retained her place in California, but she spent a great deal of time in Florida. Her mother lives in Florida, so Lois was always, quite distant. I saw her on a few occasions when she did come to New York. Her sister's funeral, for one, and Carol's funeral as well. There may have been a couple other times.
Okay. Separate and apart from socializing, would you speak with Lois regularly on the telephone or have any kind of regular contact with her?
Excuse me. I would say that we didn't have much communication prior to Carol's passing away.
Okay.
Subsequent to Carol passing away, then we had, I would call Alan, and she was living with Alan at the time in the earlier years when Carol passed away. So we would chat. If Alan wasn't home, I would speak to Lois.
Okay.
So it was always cordial and friendly.
Okay. I just want to clarify, because I know you mentioned before that Lois had kept her place in California, but you also just said she was living with Alan. What was your understanding of Lois's time split as between California and Florida?
After after Carol passed away, Lois would spend more and more time in Florida. I can't tell you the number of months a year, but it was just a great deal more. Her time increased over those years from when Carol passed away to I think she gave up her place in California maybe a couple of years ago.
Okay. Did you ever observe Lois caring for Alan?
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
In your time that you observed Lois or Usher, did you ever see Lois threaten Alan in any way?
Never.
Did you ever see Lois bully Alan in any way?
Never.
Did you ever see her try to manipulate Alan Hames in any way?
No.
Okay. Did Alan ever complain to you about
Let me
Lois?
just rephrase that, because I'd say when I think Lois was encouraging Alan to go into assisted living care
Okay.
in his later years. So I'd say Lois did have some involvement with respect to that, and did encourage him to seek out more permanent day-to-day help. That was when he was getting on in years.
In that Lois getting, did you see anything untoward in that, or was that just simply a dutiful daughter trying to get?
Yeah, no, it was clearly a dutiful daughter trying to get him the best care that she could.
Okay. Did you ever discuss, or did Alan ever complain to you about Lois?
I'd say in the early years, back in, say, the 1970s and early in 80s, Alan was, I guess, somewhat disappointed in Lois's career choices, and she, for a period of time, was a masseuse, and he didn't appreciate that. So I'd say in those early years, I think he was frustrated and concerned about her and her being able to support herself financially.
Okay. Moving forward to the, let's say, the year 2005 through 2009, did Alan have any complaints about Lois during that period of time?
No, Alan actually greatly appreciated Lois spending as much time as she did after Carol passed away.
Okay.
And, really saw that this was an opportunity for them to develop a much closer family relationship.
Okay. Would Alan ever talk about Xylo with you?
On occasion, not often. but all throughout the years, yes.
Okay. What would he say with regard to Xylo? What did you guys talk about?
Alan explained, I guess at the time, apparently there was a car accident, and Xylo was injured in that car accident. So Alan was very fraught and concerned at that time and expressed that to me. I'd say subsequent to that, in ensuing years, Alan expressed a frustration and an anger at actions and decisions that Xylo made that caused him a great deal of grief.
Okay. Did Alan ever express to you that he intended to give Xylo half of his estate?
No.
Okay.
Never did.
Do you know how Alan felt about the relationship between Lois and Xylo? And before you answer, I just want to interrupt you. If you need to take a break for any point, this is not a torture test either.
Okay, no problem.
We can go off the record if you need to get water or anything like that.
I'm fine. Want to just repeat your question, please?
Please. Did you ever have any discussions with Alan Hames about his opinion on the relationship between Lois and Xylo?
I don't recall too many discussions between, where Alan would talk about Lois and Xylo in the same context or the same sentence.
Okay.
They tended to be separate and distinct conversations over the years.
You testified previously that you and Alan had discussed potential real estate investments regularly, practically up through his date of death. Would you discuss additional investments besides real estate, such as stocks, bonds, equities, or were you strictly just discuss that kind of element of your respective portfolios?
Alan's career and life experience was in real estate.
Okay.
And he lived, eat, and breathed real estate. He loved it. And stocks and bonds were areas that he was never greatly experienced in and was not as comfortable in those areas.
Okay.
I worked on Wall Street and as an investment banker for a number of years, and so I would try to teach him and explain things to him. He sought out financial advisors, particularly when he was in Florida, to assist him, and I think he relied on them to make significant decisions with respect to the stocks and bonds that were purchased. I think occasionally he would hear something or decide to invest in something, but I think many of those decisions, in fact, I think he relied more on Carol. I think he felt, Carol had some of her own money that she had invested, and so she was spending time learning about stocks and bonds, and so it just wasn't an area he was very comfortable talking about investing in, but as he accumulated liquid resources, he had to invest in them. And
okay. Did you know any of Alan's investment advisors? Did you know who they were?
He may have mentioned the name, one or two names in the past, but I don't recall.
Okay, that's fine.
I think one of them was at one of the big firms. I don't recall.
you need to take a break? You come up for some water? Or?
No, I'm fine. I had the flu 2 weeks ago, so it's just a residual
still
cough
shaking
from it. So I'm fine, I'm healed, but it's just the residual cough.
Not a problem at all. My son is still shaking the flu as well. He's 1. Do you have any particular favorable feelings or animosity as it regards Lois Hames or Zilo Marshall?
No, I don't have any personal animosity. I think it's unfortunate that their family wasn't closer than they were over the many years. We've always tried to foster a close relationship in our family, and I've had numerous conversations with Alan over the years. But Alan made his own decisions and was his own man.
Okay. And really for this question, let's just kind of confine the time period from like 2007 forward. Did you visit Alan Hames at all during the last few years of his life?
Yes, I did.
Okay. Tell me about those visits, please.
Sure. My parents lived in Florida, not too far from Alan. So often when I would go down and visit my parents, I would see Alan, tell him I'm coming down, and we'd make a date to get together for lunch or, so I'd say I recall in around 2006, I had gone down and went to lunch. In fact, my parents came with me to see Alan, and I think Lois was there as well. I don't think my wife was there. And so we had a lovely time. We went to visit him at his place he was at the time. I think that was the Hyatt. And then, we had a lovely time together. I remember in 2009, I looked back and when I did see him, and I think it was December 17th of 2009, I visited him also as part of a trip to my parents. And this was at the Carlisle, the next place that he was at. And he was, showing me around. In fact, he had asked, Lois was there as well that day. And he actually asked Lois to step out and he and I went into a large sort of a living room that they had. He closed the doors, and we had a very meaningful private conversation, particularly about some of the properties. I've invested in other transactions outside of Alan, and he was particularly interested in learning how those have evolved and developed over the years, and whether they turned out to be attractive investments or not. And we also had a meaningful conversation about the property that we own together.
Okay. Terrific. Did Lois Hames ever attempt to interfere with you calling or visiting Alan Hames?
No.
Okay.
Lois appreciated the relationship that Alan and I had, and never wanted to interfere.
Okay. Would you ever visit with Alan Hames when Lois Hames was not around?
In that period from, say, 2007 on?
Yeah.
Yes. My wife and I went to visit Alan. Gosh, I don't recall that visit, when that visit was, but Lois was not there, and he showed us. He was in, I'm trying to remember, I think it was in the Hyatt, the first place he was in.
Okay.
And Alan, he was introducing us to all his friends and neighbors in the facility, and showed us around the entire facility. And in fact, we they had happy hour, and so we had a glass of wine together, and just had a very, very nice time together.
Oh, good. Did you ever know one of Alan's friends, a man named Jack Levy?
No, that name does not ring a bell to me.
Okay. So it would be fair to say that Alan Hames never discussed Jack Levy with you?
No.
Okay.
No, never did.
All right. Based on your interactions and your communications with Alan Hames during this relevant time period from 07 forward, do you have any concern that Alan Hames might have lacked testamentary capacity to make a will on January 30th, 2009?
No, I did not have.
Based on your observations and based on your interactions with Alan Hames, do you have any concerns that during that period from 2007 through 2009 that Lois Hames was attempting to unduly influence Alan Hames to make or change his will to benefit her?
No.
Okay.
No, Alan was very assertive and forceful, and clearly made his own decisions.
Okay. Based on that last remark, do you believe that Lois Hames would have been capable of unduly influencing Alan Hames to change her will?
No, absolutely not.
Alrighty. Subject to any redirect after Mr. Marshall's cross, I think I'm set. Thank you, sir. Can we go right into your cross, or do you need to take a break?
I'm fine.
Okay. Mr. Marshall, you're up.
Yes. Good morning, Mr. Cohen.
Good morning.
My name is Alan Marshall, representing myself as a plaintiff in the case of Alan Marshall versus Lois Hames and Craig Donoff in the incident of Alan Hames. I am also asking you these questions through a telephonic deposition in California. I'll be jumping around during this lawsuit. What is your current profession?
I'm a real estate investor.
How many years have you been a real estate investor?
Asked and answered.
Okay. Do you consider yourself an honest and ethical person?
Objection, improper character testimony, improper bolstering or improper attack on the character and credibility of this witness.
You can answer.
You can answer if you can.
Yes.
Have you ever lied to anyone before?
Objection, same objections, improper bolstering, improper character, improper attack on this witness's credibility. There's no foundation for this question. Subject to objections. You can answer if you can.
Ever lied? Probably have.
Okay. Have you ever testified in court before?
Testified in court? Yes, I did.
Have you ever been a plaintiff or defendant in another case?
Yes.
Okay. Have you ever spoken to Lois Hames? Ask me, answer, like that.
He said strike that.
When was the last time you saw Lois Hames?
The last time I saw Lois Hames, let me think about that. Probably Alan's funeral and subsequent Shiva period.
Excuse me?
At Alan's, I believe it was at Alan's funeral and Shiva period.
Okay, how many times in 2005, 2010, approximately how many times did you see Lois Hames?
A couple. I don't know exactly.
Okay, how many times did you speak to her on the phone?
Oh, numerous times.
More than 10, 20, 30?
Oh, probably from 2005 to 2010.
Yeah.
Could have been 30 times or more.
Okay. Did you send any emails to Lois Haynes?
Yes.
Did you receive any emails from Lois Haynes?
Yes, I did.
Okay. Did Alan Haynes ever do anything that caused you to distrust him?
Objection, leading, no predicate, assumes facts not in evidence, beyond the scope of my direct examination, irrelevant, immaterial to the issues in this case. Subject to those objections.
You can answer.
No.
Okay. As we sit here right now, has Lois Haynes done anything to betray your trust?
No.
Okay.
I'm just going to...
Currently, do you have...
Hold on, Mr.
Currently,
Marshall.
do you
Mr.
have-
Marshall,
Go ahead.
let me finish my sentence.
Sorry.
And I apologize if I didn't provide this to you before. If you could give us a beat or two after the question, so I can get those objections in there.
I'm sorry.
Sure.
Even if it's a yes or a no answer, if it's an objectionable question, because this is for trial, I don't really have an opportunity later to do this again. So,
I understand.
Okay. Currently, do you have any new business ventures with Lois Haynes?
objection, irrelevant, immaterial, improper, attempt at impeachment, beyond the scope of the direct examination.
You can answer.
Any new ventures? No.
Would you consider doing any new ventures, joint ventures with her in the future?
Objection, improper impeachment, irrelevant, immaterial, beyond the scope of the direct examination. You can answer.
I don't know what the future holds.
Okay. Do you know who Zala Marshall is?
Asked and answered.
Okay. Does Zala Marshall ever call you on the phone?
Yes.
Okay. How many times did he call you?
I don't recall.
What did he call you about?
To pursue matters related to my relationship with Alan Hames and perhaps Elka
Zala
Associates.
Marshall. Go ahead.
And perhaps Elka Associates and an entity called Aces Associates.
Did Zala Marshall ever email you before?
I believe so.
How many times?
I don't recall.
What did he email you about?
I think it had to do with my relationship with Alan Hames, perhaps Aces Associates and Elka Associates, but I'm not quite clear.
What? What year did you first acquire your first business venture with Alan Hames?
Objection, previously asked and answered, irrelevant, immaterial, beyond the scope. You can answer if you can.
Probably the early 1980s, if I recall correctly, but
From 2003 till 2012, were you involved in any business ventures, either buying, selling, leasing, financing properties with Alan Hames?
yes.
Okay. Can you describe what these transactions involved? Which transactions were they?
Objection, immaterial, irrelevant, beyond the scope of the direct examination.
Alan and I are partners in an entity called Elka Associates, so we had matters related to that, numerous matters. And then we, as I said, we've looked at acquiring other properties, and we've discussed the potential acquisition, but never actually closed on any acquisition during that period.
Okay. Did Lois Haynes influence you on what to and not to say in this deposition?
No.
Okay. Was Lois Hames close with her father?
Objection. Improper form, no predicate, leading. You can answer if you can.
It's unclear. That question is very unclear.
Okay. Did Lois Hames and Alan Hames have a close relationship?
Same objections. Do you want to try a time frame, Mr. Marshall?
From 2005 to 2010.
Yes, their relationship was quite close.
Okay. When did you discuss Alan Hames' estate planning document?
What time period are you talking about? I told you.
I guess from 2000 to 2010.
I don't recall the specific years. We discussed it fairly often throughout that period of time. So it was a topic that came up occasionally in our conversations throughout that period.
Did Alan Hames say in his discussion with you that he wanted to take care of his daughter, or that he did not want to take care of his grandson?
Objection, leading, suggesting an answer to the witness. Can you read that question back? I'm sorry.
Okay.
Sorry, I'm reading the
Hold on,
question
Mr.
back.
Marshall. She's reading the question back here.
Did Alan Hames say in his discussion with you that he wanted to take care of his daughter, or that he did not want to take care of his grandson?
Subject to those objections, you can answer if you can.
Alan was quite clear that he did want to take care of his daughter, and was angry and frustrated, and chose not to take care of Zyla.
Did he explain to you why he did not want to take care of Zyla Marshall? Because he was frustrated, correct?
He was both angry and frustrated, yes.
Okay. 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 From January 1st, 2003 till September 5th, 2010, how many transactions were you and Alan Hames involved with?
Can you repeat that question? I'm sorry. Mr. Marshall,
January 1st.
the court reporter is going to read that question back, but can I ask you to speak up? We're having a little trouble hearing you on this side.
Sure.
From January 1st, 2003 until September 5th, 2010, how many transactions were you and Alan Hames involved with?
Involved is a very unclear term.
Buying, selling, leasing, financing, subleasing.
We looked at potential acquisitions and potential transactions, but didn't, as I said, we didn't close any during that period of time. So,
Okay.
but we did own one property together
Where did you own that property?
in Pittsburgh.
Okay. Okay. When you met Alan Hames in 2007, did he seem like he was had visual problems? Was he having a hard time seeing you or the people around him?
Object to form. I'd object to the leading nature of that question. You can answer.
He never expressed a problem to me. He knew who I was quite clearly.
Right, but I mean, I'm not sure. Did you ever discuss with him when you were over there, a paper, a document, something to look at, any kind that he had to put glasses on, or that he was having a hard time reading that document? I mean, did you just have a meeting and meet him, or did you have a meeting, meet him, discuss with him about something, and then show him a document of any kind?
Objection, leading, assuming facts not in evidence, no factual predicate. You can answer if you can.
I don't recall any documents that we were viewing at the time.
Did he read anything to you? Anything on paper, on the computer to you?
Objection, leading.
No.
Okay. From January 1st, 2003 till current, how many transactions were you and Lois Haynes involved with?
Objection, vague and ambiguous in the use of the term involved. Objection, beyond the scope of the direct examination. Objection, irrelevant. Objection, immaterial. You can answer if you can.
0.
Okay. Do you know of anything about Aces Associates Limited Partnership?
Objection, irrelevant, immaterial. Mr. Marshall, we've already established a lot of these facts with regard to ACEs. I'll let you get some foundation questions in, but if you think we're going to spend 45 minutes...
No, this is much less. Much less in questions compared to Ellen Cohen. Much less.
Yes.
Okay. When were you involved with your last business venture with Aces Associates?
I believe it was 1988.
Okay. Okay. Do you have the Marshall exhibits in front of you? Folder in front of you?
we have them on the table here.
Okay. Let's turn to Exhibit Y.
Excuse me.
He has the exhibit, Mr. Marshall.
Okay. This is a UCC report from August 25th, 1994. Did this report include anything about 210 Central Park South?
Objection. This document violates the best evidence rule. Objection. This document is not authenticated. Objection. This document appears to contain hearsay without any exception. Objection, this is irrelevant. Objection, this is immaterial. Objection, this is beyond the scope of the direct examination. You did not notice this deposition for your own purposes. Subject to those objections, you can proceed.
It's very unclear as to what this relates to, but Alan and I owned a small building upstate New York, and it may have related to that. I see Onondaga Savings Bank in Syracuse, and it may have related to that Transact property, but we sold that many years ago.
Okay. Matt, can you just say the objection that you did last time is this time to object in every instance? If you can just say object, and then we can discuss that at the court. I appreciate that.
So you're stipulating that I have a standing objection on all grounds I can supplement with a memorandum of law later?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Under collateral information, there is a collateral type. What does all equipment include?
Objection per the standing objection.
This is the first I see this. I don't know what this relates to.
Okay. And you do not know what specific features or fixtures include?
I'm not sure what this entire UCC report relates to.
Okay. Is your name on that report?
Yes.
Okay. Are you aware of the sale of any properties at 210 Central Park South?
Objection, leading, objection, vague and ambiguous.
Alan was a tenant in an apartment in 210 Central Park South, but to the best of my knowledge, he had no ownership interest in it.
Okay.
It was a rental apartment building.
Okay. So you're not sure of the sale of any property on April 30th, 2008 that was in excess of $15 million?
objection, leading objection mischaracterizes his testimony. Per my standing objection, I'll just supplement it later.
You're referring to 210 Central Park South?
Yes.
Alan, to the best of my knowledge, never had any ownership interest in 210 Central Park South.
Not through a tax there's a okay. This is a real estate investment trust for the property at 210 Central Park South and a RPTT. I'm not sure what that means, but it was owned under those two entities. Are you aware of the sale of any of the properties at 210 Central Park South using those two entities?
No.
Okay. You know the gentleman by the name of Jeffrey Muedler, Moerdler?
I've heard the name.
Okay. Where do you know this gentleman from?
I do not know him. I only have heard his name. I believe he's active in the real estate industry in New York.
Okay. Do you know of a gentleman by the name of Levin Mintz, M-I-N-T-Z?
To the best of my knowledge, Levin Mintz is a law firm that I believe is based in Boston, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay, let's turn to Exhibit H.
Should be tab at the top.
H. Okay. I have it. Exhibit H.
Okay. Do you know of an LLC called 210 TPS Associates?
Per my standing objection, irrelevant immaterial, beyond the scope. I'll supplement later.
No. Never seen it before.
Okay. Let's turn to Exhibit R.
R. There's no R. Sorry. Okay, I have it.
Okay, under number 1, it shows the sale of $15 million. I don't have the exact amount here. Are you aware of a sale on April 30th, 2008 with that amount, $15,610,000? Are you aware of that sale?
Objection per the standing objection. Best evidence, lack of predicate. I'll supplement.
No.
Okay. And you're not sure of a sale. Okay. All right. Do you have anything else you want to say?
Objection.
No.
Leading improper question.
Okay. Nothing further. Thank you.
I have no redirect for this witness.
All right. The time is 11:32 a.m. on March 5th, 2014, and this completes the videotape deposition of Mr. Henry Cohen.
Okay.